I hope everyone has this time in their life, but it's super hard, but you become stripped of everything that you are. And like all you see are these ugly, horrible things. And then you hear someone say, I love you anyway.
What's up, everyone? You're listening to the Do Hard Things podcast by Elite SRS. The purpose of this show is to share stories of hardship and victory as an encouragement for those in the middle of their own hard thing. Because we know hardship produces perseverance, which produces character, which ultimately produces hope. Today's guest is Nicole Gibson-Burke. Nicole is a professional CrossFit athlete and nurse based out of Nashville, Tennessee. Nicole talks about betraying her husband, Matt, and the difficulty of telling the truth, even though it hurt. She also talks about breaking her back during the most recent CrossFit season in 2022 and not fully understanding the purpose. If you enjoy the show, please don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave a review so more people can be encouraged by the stories we share. Now here's the conversation with Nicole Gibson-Burke. All right, Nicole. Welcome to the Do Hard Things podcast by Elite SRS. The question I like to ask people is, when people ask you what you do, what do you tell them?
Okay, cool. Well, I just want to say first, thanks so much for having me. This is awesome. I feel super humbled to be here. But to get your question, it depends honestly on who asks me. Because if they don't know anything about CrossFit, I don't really say a whole lot about that side. But I am a nurse. I work full-time as a nurse. I worked in the ER for 6 years, and
Wow.
I was in California. That's actually what brought my husband and I out to California. I took a travel nursing contract, which was super awesome. Gave me so much opportunity, and just kind of made the whole move there really simple. They set us up an apartment, everything, stipend, it was all there. So so I still nurse. I actually in 2018 took a job as a contracted school nurse for charter schools. I don't actually do one-on-one care for students in school, but I do write their reports for their IEPs. Any student that has any health problem, I do write the report for the school to hold them accountable, to meet their needs.
Yeah.
So it's really cool because I can do that remotely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, my husband and I moved to Hattiesburg in 2020. And so I was able to continue that job. And I'm still working that job today.
And you don't live in Hattiesburg anymore.
Nope.
And why did you move to Hattiesburg?
So we moved to Hattiesburg for a couple of reasons, but mainly just to be closer to my family. The time that we moved, it was, 2019, October. My family, they were just going through a hard time. My dad, my sister, there was just a lot of things going on, and there was a lot of pressure on my mom. And I knew I could be there to be a helping hand. I felt like God kind of wanted us to go back there and be there for them. And we definitely saw a lot of growth being back in Hattiesburg in my family. And, things are way better than they were at the time. And I'm super thankful for that time that we were there. Okay.
And then you live in Tennessee now?
Yeah. Nashville. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's funny. The, original plan was for us to move here temporarily, very temporary. So we moved here at the end of April. I was planning to go through all of quarterfinals and semifinals with Proven in their base at CrossFit Nashville. Mm-hmm. And hopefully if I had reached my goal of going to the games, I would have extended the trip to August to train with them there. So that was the plan. And now we have smushed the plan. We don't know.
But you're still there.
Yeah, we're still in Nashville. Yeah, we have some awesome team around here. The physical therapy, the orthopedic doctor, they're here. And I just felt like we didn't want to rush back. There's not really any point. We have this lease on our apartment until August. We're chillaxing.
Just enjoying it while you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been in Nashville for a little bit.
and sounds like you'll be there for a little bit longer. How many people are there with you guys as part of the like proven crew or group training collective? I don't know what you call it, but
yeah, there's actually a lot. Yeah, the main, of course, I would say just the main people, Tia and Shane, obviously, and then the other coach on site is Dwight. Dwight Upshaw. Nick Johnson travels from Cookeville. He'll travel every 2 weeks or so to be on site. And then we have Brooke, Will, Morad, Sydney, Gunner, Paulina, she lives in Mexico. And then we have John Colty. I don't see him too much, but he comes and trains with the crew. And then the latest addition was Saxon Panchik.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's been awesome.
Okay. Wow. And I'm guessing because you named a few people that are like international originally. So what makes somebody decide this is who I'm going to train with?
Well, I don't really know if you can just decide like, oh, I'm going to train here. Shane and Tia, they have such a high standard for every single thing that they do. They're very protective over every single thing that they do because they worked so hard for it. So I think before anything else, they just want to make sure who you are as a person fits well with who they are. You know, organically, people are able to involve themselves in the on-site training. I know how my process was, but I don't know how everyone else's process is or was to, be on-site training here.
Did you reach out to them and say, hey, I want to train with you guys. I love what you're doing. And then they put you through that process that you're talking about?
For sure. So last year I competed at the MAC, and that's where Brooke and Tia also competed. And so I met them there, physically met them there. I had been doing proven for a year, and I saw like amazing trends up whenever I started proven, like strength, endurance, aerobic capacity, like everything just was improving like crazy. And so I wasn't really sure how I'd perform at MAC, but I had a lot of like confidence and preparation. I ended up placing 8th and qualified for the last chance qualifier. And I had been talking with Dwight throughout that process, from qualifying to semifinals, through semifinals, and then through last chance qualifier. Dwight was kind of my person to talk to.
Yeah.
And he invited me up to CrossFit East Nashville to do the last chance qualifier, which was the most amazing opportunity ever. Because at the time, James Newberry was there, and he also was doing last chance qualifier. So not only would I not have to do it alone, but I would be doing it like with the fittest person on earth forever.
Right.
And Shane, and, it was just an amazing opportunity. Getting to meet everybody, and we spent a little bit of time with them before last chance, a little bit after last chance. Anybody that hangs out with them is just like gravitated towards them. And so I was like, well, I definitely want to give myself another opportunity to be here. And so whenever things started ramping up again this year, I stayed in touch with Dwight and everyone here and came up and trained last year, like a few weekends. But then just I just asked. So I was like, can I just come up here and move here and, give it 100%? And they were graciously like, yes. Yeah. So it was really cool. Super humbled and like super grateful to have that chance to like be here.
Mm-hmm. Is it normal for somebody to like move that? Because that was in the middle of the season, right? So is it normal for somebody to like make that transition in the middle of a season, or is it usually like a off-season switch and then train lead up to?
I don't really know what would be normal. I think people do different things. The way I looked at it was that the open was a block, training for the open. You just, at this point, like I'm not really training for the open. I knew that quarterfinals would be important because that would be deciding my seating or my placement in the heats for semifinals. Yeah. And so I wasn't too worried about being, here for the open. And then also with like Shane and Tia being in South Korea at that time, I just didn't have the chance to ask. So whenever they came back, and I talked to Matt a little bit about it, and we just decided that like we would like to extend ourselves before quarterfinals would be a good time, because the time between quarterfinals and semifinals, like about 4 4 to 7 weeks, depending on which semifinal you're in.
Right.
A huge block of training. So in my head, I was thinking that would be perfect.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like not abnormal, but maybe not necessarily normal, but it totally worked out, at least for you, and the timing that you had to do it then. Are you glad you made the move?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I've learned so much just from breathing the same air. It seems like they they are very unique in the way they approach things, very detailed oriented and like hyper aware. And I felt like I was that way. And sometimes I kind of felt crazy for thinking the way that I thought and doing things the way that I was doing them. And I felt like some other people thought I was crazy too. But, being around them makes me think like, okay, I'm on the right path. We're doing this right. We just got to sharpen things a lot more. And there's just those tip of the icebergs that you don't know until you know. It's not until I can ask, like, how do I be great, that I find out how to be great,
Yeah. And there's like that old adage, right? Of if you want to be better, go compete against people that are better than you. And I would imagine that helps, having people push you.
Yeah. And just being in the gym with like-minded people and people that have the same goals as me and that are better than me. There's just a fire that builds, it just gets bigger and bigger every single day.
Yeah. Pushes you out of your comfort zone. It's probably, I would imagine for you, like if you just dropped in at a CrossFit gym and worked out there, nobody's pushing you more than you are. Like you're going to be the one pushing yourself at the level that you compete at versus, going and spending time with people who are already at that high level that you're pursuing. Just a different air, to use the word that you used.
Yeah.
So the kind of the point of the show or the podcast is what's the hardest thing in your life you wouldn't take back? Maybe there's multiple of them. Share what that season was or that event, and then we'll just talk through it.
Okay. So currently my back is broken.
You said that so casually.
I know.
I don't feel like you can say that casually.
I know.
Or you shouldn't be able to.
It's not casual at all. But I will say I've definitely experienced some harder times, because as much as this is what I view as a setback, it has so much opportunity in growing. I think the hardest thing that's ever happened to me happened prior to me marrying Matt. The details, I'm not like super ready to expose those, but I'll just say that it was just a big test for us. And it was at that moment in time that I learned basically how to be loved and how to love. And I'm still working on loving others. That season of my life shaped who I am today. And I literally wouldn't be who I am today without Matt. And he's literally an angel on earth. He really is. Like, I just want everyone to meet him. Throughout that season, he loved me more than anyone else could ever love me. And it was almost like I hope everyone has this time in their life, but it's super hard, but you become stripped of everything that you are. And like all you see are these ugly, horrible things. And then you hear someone say, I love you anyway. And it's the same love that God extends to us. To see that on earth and like to feel that and know that and just to experience it it's completely life-changing. And it has completely shaped how I view things. And it's so much easier to extend grace whenever you were extended grace.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so that would be number one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's sit on it for a second. And I know you don't want to share details, so I won't ask about the specific event, but I do want to know, so talk about what came, like you say, I'm different because of this. And you said I can extend grace, but can you, without sharing all the details of maybe what the circumstances were, can you talk about this is who I was and this is who I am now, like the change that came from it? Is that doable?
Yeah. So, I mean, the person I was, so I I was raised in a Christian home. I always knew what it was, or, what Christian life was. The person I was before, I would say, was hard, not understanding of everyone and not being able to put myself in their shoes to understand their actions. I would say that before, the person that I was I'm sorry, it's hard for me to put this all into words, because honestly, I've never had this conversation with a stranger. The best way I could say is just that I was just hard. I was like a shell of a person. I didn't really care about anybody but myself.
Yeah.
And after experiencing someone love you despite something that you've done, to the point of betrayal, it's just life-changing.
Yeah.
And the way that he did it with so much grace.
Yeah.
It changed my life. And so now I'm able to extend grace a lot more. Whenever I see someone, or someone, for instance, in my family, if someone messes up in my family, it's a lot easier for me to smile and say, I love you. And it's okay, because this isn't our end.
Yeah.
And, that's really all I can say. It's just, it was life-changing. I hope everyone gets to experience that.
Yeah. Sounds like there's this, growing up in a Christian home, I think for a lot of people, there's this idea, there's two paths that people tend to take. It seems like one of them is that hard inside, where grace is this idea that's in your head, but it's what it is, but you haven't internalized it into a way that you live. The freedom isn't available to you, and the empathy that you're talking about. Right. And so it's that comes from pride, right? There's that prideful side of thinking that, and this is me, that you're good enough. Yes. And then there's the side where it's very shame heavy. Church says, be this way, and I'm not, and I can't be that way. So I'm going to hide and live in shame. And so there's those two, I'll say they're most common paths. And so it sounds like for you, that first path of I've got it together. Why don't you? What's your problem? And then to be exposed and experience through Matt, the love of God, just took that hard heart and softened it. And grace got out of your head and into your heart, and you could walk in it.
Right. It's just like you said, it's that step. It's like a 3-step process. The first step is being humbled, right? Yeah. Doing something to the point where you're embarrassed, and then being loved anyway. And not I love you anyway, but I love you no matter what. And then being able to turn that around and give that away as well.
Yeah. You're filled up. Yeah. There's a passage, I guess it's a story in the Gospels, where Jesus is standing up in the crowd. I think he might be at the temple, but it doesn't really matter where he is. There's a bunch of people around, and he goes, hey, is anybody thirsty? What you expect him to say is come to me, I'll give you a drink, which would make tons of sense. Let me meet your need. But instead he says, come to me and I'll turn you into streams of living water. He makes you, through your weakness, somebody who can go meet someone else's need. Your weakness becomes the catalyst for somebody else, which I've experienced in my own life. I just think that's such a multiplication thing that Jesus does, and only Jesus does. It's about more than you, even in your own need, right? And that's what you're experiencing or describing is you were thirsty, you raised your hand almost, or Jesus dragged you to him, maybe. Yeah. But he was still gracious enough to turn you, not just give you a drink, but turn you into water for other people.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the hardest season. How long ago was that?
So that was in 2015.
2015. So 7-ish years ago. And so you've watched yourself grow as a result of that. For somebody who's maybe in a situation like that, where they've hurt somebody else, or have that kind of hard heart, they're lacking empathy, and they're experiencing the pain that's coming from that in relationships, what advice would you have for them?
To tell the truth. to resonate with the truth that's going on, to be open to your partner and pray together, a lot.
A lot, all the time.
But I would say definitely like the truth is what needs to be exposed, because it's always going to come out. The truth is always going to be there because the truth is the truth. And,
totally.
And you can't be fully loved in the way that, I experience with Matt until the whole truth is there.
Yeah. 100%. That's easier said than done.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, how was it a long buildup for you to get to that point? I would imagine.
Yeah, I would say, it wasn't that long.
Yeah. When you suggest, like, let's say somebody's listening to this, they hear you say, tell the truth. And they're like, well, it's not that easy. It might hurt them, which I hear a lot from people. And, I even say that to myself in my own head sometimes when I'm like, oh, I got to tell my wife that, or I got to tell my coworker that, or, oh, but it might hurt him. Is it actually worth it? What's your response to that? I don't want to call it an excuse, but that line of reasoning.
Yeah. I mean, it totally. And I experienced that myself too, because it is avoiding the truth does seem like you're going to avoid a lot of hurt.
Yeah.
But if you, just depending on what the situation is, but if you're in a similar situation, I think that in order for there to be complete healing, to experience love, like fully, that there's got to be no stone unturned, no crevice in the corner that hasn't been swept. Like everything has to be out. And, I always go back to in Genesis, whenever Adam and Eve were exposed, they realized they were naked and then they hid themselves. I always go back to that thought process. It's like, what made them feel at that moment in time embarrassed of themselves?
Yeah.
Because they had been walking naked in the garden for
who knows how long.
Yeah. As long as they've been alive. And so, that initial feeling is what you may be feeling. So I need to go hide. I need to go put leaves on. I need to go tuck myself in bed. It's not until you look at the person in front of you and like have them look at you completely naked, and not in a physical sense, but in this stripped of your fakeness, stripped of, this aura that you put out, that they can fully see you and fully know you. And then once that is there can be healing and there can be love. Yeah.
And then what do you like? The other side of this, right, is like you're giving in a sense, you actually don't have control over the other person's response, right? And not everybody's going to respond the way that Matt responded to you.
Yeah.
And so for the person who's maybe worried about the response of the other person, do you have any advice for them? It's like such a gift to have a person respond that way with full grace, right? Because people, like we're not God. So we try to be loving and caring for people, but sometimes we're really hurt. Like, do you have anything that you would encourage somebody who's maybe worried about that side of it?
I actually haven't really put a whole lot of thought into that, but it's such a great question, because even as a Christian, you're not able to overcome some hurt, but you don't want to live in a lie, because if you continue, then everything that you do is almost in vain, because it's not true. It's not fair and to the other person unless your whole truth is there. And as terrible as it is, like there's consequences to everything. I mean, I had lots of consequences as well. But thankfully I had a husband who loved me despite all of my mistakes. And so the only thing I can say, I guess, at this point is just that you'll learn so much about yourself and about how you can be a blessing to others.
Yeah, because we all need that exposing at some point, right? Like it's almost good for us, and we want it for other people. Like we look at businesses and we look at, maybe somebody else, like we'll just get the whole story out there. Like we want it for people because we can see like the opportunity on the other side. A lot of times, right? Like we have this like sense of when things are off, and we're like, I just want you to be free, right? Because you're almost like you are trapped in the lies. I remember, I think I was in ninth grade. There's like 2 posters I've ever seen in classrooms that I remember. And one of them was this one by like Mark Twain. And it said, if you never tell a lie, you don't have to remember anything. And it's like, oh, that's really profound. And sounds a little easier than lying all the time, right? Because you have to like keep all these details and you have to manage this persona. And like, there's so much freedom in the truth. I have little kids and we're going through this right now. We're reading the story of Jacob, who lied to Isaac to steal the birthright. And we're just talking about like how that separated their family. Like it destroyed their family. Jacob never saw his mom again. He never saw his dad again. And like talking to my kids, and it's like a really good reminder. I'm like talking to myself too, you know, it's like, because it's not just big things, it's little things, and they all add up. And this like importance of truth, God knows what he's talking about when he says that matters.
Absolutely. And you begin to build integrity with yourself. You know, you trust yourself and you're able to, with confidence, move forward because, you know, you're not hiding anything. And it's not like a skeleton in your closet that, you know, nobody knows and all this, you know, all this stuff.
Yeah. Can you talk about the like recovery road a little bit? Because obviously for Matt, I would imagine it's been we hear this, right? Like it takes a while to build trust, like truth builds brick by brick by brick, but a lie can like just break the whole wall down in an instant. And can you just talk about like the recovery process for you and Matt and what that was like, and maybe peel back the curtain a little bit on that part of it?
Absolutely. So when we were married, we got married in November. We spent a month in Mississippi and we moved to California. And we moved into a studio apartment with 2 large dogs.
Oh, wow. Brave.
And so we were in California. Both of our families are in Mississippi. And we literally had nothing. Like we didn't have anything. All of our stuff was sold or thrown away. We just moved with like a backpack, basically.
Yeah, a couple dogs.
A couple of things, but yeah. But I would say my advice to anyone getting married, I would say like move away from your
Really?
family. Yeah, as you know, for as little as long as you want. But like we learned how to just be one. You know, if Matt and I ever had any kind of argument, there was literally nowhere to go because our studio apartment had one door and that was to the bathroom. That was like literally the size of a refrigerator now.
Oh man.
So tiny. And so it forced us to learn to communicate in the best way. I don't want to say force, but like we just learned to communicate and we learned to be each other's best friend. And we spent a lot of time together. And you hear a lot of people say, oh, I need my me time, or he needs to do his thing and I need to do my thing. But like our marriage was built on a foundation of doing our thing. And we literally are just him and I against the world. And so that was a huge, I would say like the best thing that could have ever happened to us at that time.
Yeah.
Because if we did ever have a disagreement, I know myself would have run to my mom and dad. We had ups and downs, but like mainly ups. It was the time of our life out there.
Yeah.
And we learned so much about each other.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was just necessity, right? Like he almost was like, he was forced to have to choose it's a choice to trust you from then on. And like, you know, obviously you have to be trustworthy after that, but being forced to like talk things through, to use your word, forced, communicate, which I think is probably a good thing, that created no opportunity for there to be like things not told and like unseen and unknown. And so it probably like built the walls quicker back up.
We had one car, which we still only have one car. So anytime I would go to work, he would drop me off and pick me up. Like we did everything together. And so there really was no room for question. It was just me and him all the time. And it's still like that, which is amazing. And we love it. But I mean, I think that was a major factor in our building the foundation of our marriage.
That's really good. You know, like now on this side, my wife and I haven't been married that long. We're like 6 years in. And sometimes we find ourselves wishing we had family close because we've got all these little kids that we need help with. And like we kind of are on our own doing it. But to your point, when we moved, like we met and got married in Seattle. And then when we moved to Phoenix for a little while, like that season of our life, it's forced us, like all the people that were in our individual camps before we got married weren't there anymore. And so like everything that we did became an our or us, like friendship or us activity, or like it was all new, just the two of us, which was like, to your point, really valuable. It like further solidified us as a like unit rather than individuals.
Yeah. You have no other choice. Like you literally know no one except each other.
Yeah. And you're like in the middle of a hard thing together, which is kind of cool. Yeah. So that was the hardest season. And that does sound really hard. And I have also been there, having lied to my wife and then having to like tell the truth, or not choosing to, but then having to like go ahead and share all of it later. But it was totally worth it. I would never wish it on anyone, but it's like so healing at the end of the day. And that grace that you experience is really rich. So I feel like I can relate. I can't, obviously don't know the full story, but that like broken trust rebuilding thing I can, and the grace of the Lord that you get to know more of because of it.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing that. I wanted to ask you, this current season that you're in, like what is a hard thing that you're in the middle of right now? Because I don't think like hard things are supposed to be like one and dones and then you just coast the rest of your life. Like we're always going through hard seasons. So what's a hard thing you're in the middle of right now?
So like I mentioned earlier, I broke my back the week that I moved to Nashville.
The week you did?
Yeah. The same. Yeah. I knew exactly when it happened, but I didn't know it was broken at the time. Like I've had some back issues. And so I was like, oh, it's just a flare up. Like I'll take 4 days off and I'll be back swinging with all of them. And 4 days go by and nothing's better. Wasn't worse, but it wasn't better. But definitely movement's limited. And I'm coming up on quarterfinals, like the clock's ticking, like I gotta get going. And so, find myself pushing it a little bit. And quarterfinals comes around. The workouts weren't crazy hard on my back. And so that was good. The only one that I was super worried about was called the other total. And it was a max clean, a 1 rep max clean, a 1 rep max bench press, and a 1 rep max overhead squat. Yeah. And so I was like super worried about that one. And I had an awesome physical therapist here, Ben, and he literally like gave me treatment before every workout, after every workout, before I left to go home, and then whenever I got there the next morning. And I actually got through that workout pretty well. Like I had to power clean because I couldn't squat. I ended up PRing my power clean, which was...
Are you serious?
Yes. Crazy.
What?
I know.
I was going to ask you how you did any of this with a broken back, but now I want to know how you PR'd with a broken back.
I know.
That's insane.
Yeah. And I PR'd my bench press as well, which didn't have a whole lot to do with my back, but
it's involved.
Bench press progression. I was so pumped to hit that. And then I had a very tiny weight on my overhead squat just because I couldn't really squat pain-free. It really actually wasn't even the squat. It was like catching the jerk overhead and like the rebound.
Landing of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So got through quarterfinals and I was like, all right, I'm taking like a whole week off. I'm not even moving. And on like Sunday, the Sunday after, my husband and I walked a lot. We walked down through downtown Nashville, through this place called the Gulch. We went like through shopping areas and ate, and it was a good day. I remember thinking like, I stepped down off of a curb and I was like, oh my gosh, my back just like shifted and there's something going on, like something is wrong. And then at that time, my friend Sydney had given me a contact for this place called Elite Sports Medicine. And she said that they had helped her before get an MRI quickly. And so I contacted them and I was like, hey, I need to go ahead and just get an MRI. I just want to see, like, make sure nothing's crazy. And then within 3 days, I couldn't even walk. And it was I don't know if it was the walking that day or laying down flat in the MRI, but there was like 2 days that I couldn't even go to the bathroom. Like I needed Matt to carry me. And like I couldn't even touch my big toe on my right leg to the floor, or else I was like in pain, like more pain than I've ever felt in my entire life. Man. I can't even describe it.
No, you're doing a good job. That sounds
horrible.
Yeah.
So the results come back, and at this point I was still like, what is this? What is happening? Yeah. And the doctor says, you have a spinal fracture. It's in the L4, L5 region. And then you have this on the right side, that vertebrae is pressing on your L5 nerve root, which is what was causing that horrible pain down my leg. And so he said, unfortunately, you're going to need to be in a back brace for the next 8 weeks. No bending, no lifting, no twisting. Like basically don't do anything for at least 8 weeks. And so it was like the worst news ever.
Yeah.
Through quarterfinals, I was like, I'm going to semifinals. Amidst all of the challenge through getting through that weekend, I was like, if I made it through, and I made it through so well, God's plan definitely is for me to go to semifinals. Like there's no way he would let me through if that wasn't his plan. And so then that happens and I'm like, what the heck? Like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like, why am I here? I felt like this was the right thing to do. We prayed about it. We talked about it. Everything worked out so well for us to get here. So I'm like, why God, what is going on? Like,
what a good question though.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wouldn't even say that being physically hurt has been the hardest time or like hardest part of this whole thing. I can deal with physical pain. I can deal with like looking at this as a good thing. But the hardest part for me is figuring out the purpose behind it. And I still like really quite haven't figured out what that purpose is. I know that it's there, but maybe the purpose is for something to come of it that I never even see. I know that Matt has gotten a lot of opportunity to coach in ways that he has never been able to coach, and he wouldn't have if I was working out because he would have been so focused on me. So that's been a blessing, and that's been a huge opportunity through this situation. But at the root of it, like I still don't know why, why we're here, why we're doing what we're doing. And it may be that, next year is like the best season ever and I make it to the CrossFit Games. But one thing I've learned is that I can't expect that. I cannot focus on 365 days from now. I have to focus on today. I can't even work out tomorrow because my back could just explode again.
Yeah.
So having that taken away has just given me a new perspective and a new job. And that's just to focus on the day that I'm on.
Yeah. And it sounds like you probably have a lot of time to ask and think about that question. Like, why? So I'm curious, like, because, I've had a few situations in my life where I still don't really know why. And it feels a little bit like I'm cheating when I like try to come up with a reason just to make myself feel better. Have you gone through that process of like, oh, it's probably this. And you're like, wait a second. I don't know. I think I'm just reading into it too far. Like come back or.
Yeah. I mean, I was asking myself this question like throughout the weekend of quarterfinals, because my back was hurting so bad that I couldn't focus on my workout. I just had to focus on being healthy enough to complete the workout well enough to make it to semifinals. And so I didn't get to like do me, in a sense. And so this whole time I'm asking myself like, why? And it's like, oh, okay, probably so I can make it through and then have this great story. Like, even though there's so many bad things happen, like I still made it through, like God still pulled me through, blah, blah, blah. And, come Monday, I'm like, nope, that wasn't the reason, because I'm not making it through. Like, like I said, there's a lot of things I've learned so far, but I don't feel like those are the reasons that it happened. And I'm, content with not knowing, or with the possibility of not ever knowing. because of the perspective it's given me. And it's like taken the weight off of my goal. Obviously my goal is still to go to the CrossFit Games. Like that's what I want to do. And I'll do everything that I can to do it. Yeah. But I have no control over whether or not I go to the CrossFit Games in this scenario. Like I can do every single thing that I can possibly do to get myself ready and prepared and good enough to go, but I still may not be able to go.
Yeah.
And so to sit and have peace in that knowledge has been huge for me.
You said it, but I'm going to ask it, like, how can you have peace? Especially when you don't know the answer, right?
Yeah. Well, I just feel like I don't really have any other choice. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how. I've asked for it.
Oh, that could be how.
And peace doesn't mean like I'm not sad, because I am. Like I am sad all the time, especially now. Like semifinals are going on, and I'm watching my friends compete, and it's so hard not to be like, oh, I coulda, woulda, shoulda. It has, and I can't, because I'm not there, and like I'm not there, and so I can't even have those thoughts. But I am sad, and it's still super heartbreaking, to the point of, I'll cry if I think too hard about it. And I don't want to cry right now, but, but yeah, I mean, I'll be sitting in the gym, and, Tia and Shane have been great. They're like, you can come to the gym and hang out and, watch, there's so much to learn and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that's awesome. Like, I'll be there. Any chance I get, I'll be there. And so I've been there every day. And I'll just be watching them like die on a workout. And I just like start bawling my eyes out. I'm like, I just die on a workout.
Oh, I said only CrossFit athletes.
I know. Yeah. And I guess the peace just comes from like knowing that I only have to worry about today. And I'm hoping that by the time 365 days comes around, all those days will have built up to be good enough and prepared enough to go to the CrossFit Games, but I don't know.
Yeah. So it sounds like the way that you have peace is by like almost narrowing your focus on just like what's right in front of you and controlling what you can control. Am I misrepresenting that, or is that a fair?
Yeah, summary? Absolutely. Definitely. And learning that I can't control a lot of things. Yeah. I'm a control freak. I've always been that way. I definitely get that from my dad. He's that same way, and I see it all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I do the same thing. But losing control has been the best thing for me.
Wow. Like that's just such an interesting. Losing control has given you peace. That's counterintuitive.
It's in the same vein as my season of life with Matt. Whenever we first were married, it's to the point where your hands are in the air, you're completely exposed. You have nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do except for just take a step, be you.
Yeah. Well, I will be the first one to say that breaking your back sounds very difficult. And I hope that like for everybody listening that it never happens to them, because that's just like, even just the sound of it sounds really terrible. I'm amazed that you were able to complete, for all normal humans, trying to complete a CrossFit workout is like crazy difficult. And like you were able to this just like makes me feel so like insecure and insignificant when it comes to physical fitness. Cause it's like you were able to PR and complete like at a high level a difficult CrossFit workout with a broken back. Like that's just wild. So
it is crazy.
And a testament to like the resiliency of your mind and perseverance and all of those things. And probably too, like just how committed you were to the like goal that you had in front of you.
Oh my gosh.
So
like you couldn't have told me otherwise.
Yeah.
I was not hearing it. I was not hearing that my season was over.
Man. Wow. It's like encouraging for me because I like woke up this morning. I was like, I don't want to go to the gym this morning and do my workout. Well, I feel like I'm glad I went because I would have been even more embarrassed right now talking to you if I hadn't. So
yeah, definitely
inspiring nonetheless.
That one.
Yeah. Well, Nicole, I'm really glad that you took me up on the offer to be on the podcast and share your story. It's fun to get to know you a little bit more. And I'm confident I'm encouraged. So I'm confident somebody else will be encouraged by your story. Is there, like, if somebody wanted to reach out or if they wanted to follow you, or is there a way that they can see what's going on in your life and hear more of the story as you're recovering and all those things?
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to stay up to date on Instagram, like with my situation and like keeping everybody updated, because back home, a lot of people are interested. So I try to update that pretty regularly, but my Instagram is Nicole E. Burke. That's probably the best way.
Is that 2 E's in there?
Yeah. 2 E's.
No H. Okay.
No H.
Okay, cool. Well, I hope that some people can follow you and follow up and hear your story, and maybe they can ask questions if they're encouraged by what you shared. But again, thank you for coming on the show. It was fun to have you.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome. It's been fun to reflect and, put some words to my thoughts.
Thanks for listening to the Do Hard Things podcast by Elite SRS. We hope you're encouraged today and have a newfound hope to persevere. Be sure to subscribe for more great episodes and conversations. And if you ever want to watch an episode, check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Elite SRS. Have a blessed day.